Chris Ballew, hello, and how the heck are you? It's so amazing to be speaking with you today. You are my first guest on this little podcast slash interview thing called Two String Things, a podcast where I discuss and explain unfamiliar instruments that are common around the world. Those instruments include two to three strings and such. So, yes,
Yeah.
Chris Ballew, yeah. I love that last name. So, tell me about that last name of yours.
Well, it's been my last name my whole life.
Oh,
I believe it's French, and I believe it. What was it? My dad poured some time and resources into doing the genealogy thing long ago, back before it was, so
the
easy to
thing,
do.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And honestly, unfortunately, I can't remember what the conclusion. I do remember that we always thought we were French.
Right. Yeah, it does
We
sound
were,
French.
yeah, it does, but we were way more, I think, Scandinavian or something, Norwegian than French, and it was
Gotcha.
kind of a surprise or something. I need to, one of my siblings, when my dad passed away, ended up with that stuff, so I need to dig back in and check it out. Yeah,
Tell us a little bit about yourself and how is Washington? I know that you're currently living in Washington, right? Seattle?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I grew up here in Washington State, on the east side of a bridge that goes across a lake that separates Bellevue from Seattle. I grew up just on the east side of this lake, and in a little town called Yarrow Point. It was its own little town, had a mayor and a little
Hmm.
city hall and a little Fourth of July parade and our own little fireworks display on
That's
New Year's
definitely
Eve.
a small American town. That's cool.
Yeah, it was cool. So yeah, I love living in Washington State. I've been all over the world, of
Hmm.
course, my rock and roll band. Every time I get home and get out of the airport and roll down the window and breathe in that like moist, verdant air,
Yes,
it's just like,
definitely.
now
Yeah,
I'm home.
I'll be going to Seattle hopefully later in July to meet with a couple people, a potential producer as well too, but I'll keep that on the wraps until it's official. But
Okay.
yeah, so you're in Vashon Island, is that where your current house is
Yeah.
now?
Vashon Island. Yep.
Yeah, I saw that YouTube video where the interviewer is giving you like 63 questions or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
That's a gorgeous home. Did you design it yourself or did it come like that or?
Somewhat. No, actually, it's been remodeled in the last and kind of drastically reformed in I think we did it from November 2020 to November 2021.
Wow.
We rebuilt this place. Some of it I designed, like the
Hmm.
roof line of the main house, and but we had an architect who did a really great job with the sort of nuts and bolts stuff. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
we bought this
gorgeous.
house. Gosh, what are we on now? I think we're around 9 years we've
Hmm.
been in this house, but we were part time. Part of the time we lived in Seattle, part time on Vashon. Now we're full time
Full
Vashon.
time.
Loving it. I have envisioned living on an island my whole life,
I can
and
see that just
hadn't.
lyrically. I don't know why. Just listening to your
Yeah.
stuff, yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, yearning for nature and little
Hmm.
critters and
Right.
stuff like that. So it's sort of a culmination of a lifelong dream, and it feels very nice.
That's awesome. That's very
Yeah.
cool.
And
S-
actually, the Vashon, there's a President's Vash musical connection.
Oh yeah.
Dave Dederer, the guitar player in
Right.
the Presidents, the three-string player,
Hmm.
his family had a little cabin here on Vashon. And when I was a teenager and we were sort of hanging out in the same circles, I would end up at this little cabin on the weekends. And this was my first time seeing island life as an
Yeah.
option for
Wow.
the future or whatever. So Dave Dederer is who I have to thank for turning me on to Vashon. In
Yeah.
fact, and he lives here part time now too. So
That's very cool.
yeah, we're both getting back to our roots.
But yeah, that's a perfect segue, actually. Thank you for that. Yeah, according to my research, which is Wikipedia,
Mhm.
it says that the band, the Presidents of the United States, formed in 1993. Is that correct?
Yeah, December of '93 was our first gig with Jason.
Tell us how the band kind of culminated. How did it get together?
Well, it started with your friend and mine, Mark Sandman,
Oh,
really,
wow.
because Mark is the guy that turned me on to the two-string and three-string thing. This is the two-string
Hmm.
guitar right here
Yeah,
that
yeah.
I played on the debut record. And this is set up like a six-string, but it was the two-string that Mark
Yeah.
first handed me. That's the first two-string I ever picked up, was this red one.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So the genesis of the Presidents began with this like shift from traditional six-string guitar tuning and all that to this new way of thinking about playing and the dynamics of playing up
Wow.
and down the neck and all the interesting ways you could still get complex chords out of fewer strings. And
Right.
And I started applying some of my older songs to that setup and then writing
Hmm.
new songs. And it just was incredibly inspiring. I was in Boston at the time, of course, living with Mark. And when I went back to Seattle in, that era, that time frame is so hazy for me. I think it was
Yeah.
like late winter 93 that I finally settled back in Seattle. And Dave Dederer and I had played together in the 80s
Hmm.
as a duo playing six-string acoustic guitars called the
Oh,
Dukes
nice.
of Pop.
Hmm.
And we did songs like Tiki God and a couple other presidents, that would eventually become president songs. So anyway, when I got back to Seattle, I called Dave. I was like, "Do you want to, set something up, try a band? And by the way, how do you feel about taking three strings off your guitar?"
Yeah, so that was you. Yeah, that was one of my questions.
Yeah,
So you suggested it. How did he receive that?
he was game. He
Wow.
was ready to try something. I think he felt like he needed a challenge. He is a hotshot guitar player,
Oh yeah,
six
you
guitar
can
player.
just tell. Yeah,
Yeah.
all of you
I
guys.
did a
Yeah.
little tape called The Dukes of Pop, that was a consortium of songwriters before Dave and I hijacked it for our duo.
Hmm.
And Dave sat in on a few of those sessions, and I remember thinking, wow, he really knows how to play the guitar. So I thought,
Wow.
well, if I'm going to do the two-string and three-string thing and we're going to sing these silly songs, we have to be really good. We can't just be kind
Yeah.
of haphazard musically and silly. And I thought of Dave because he's so talented. He's in the band.
That's very cool.
It's
Hmm.
kind of like the drummer's in the band because the drummer has a car and a drum
Right.
set.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
he's willing to take three strings off his guitar, you're hired.
Exactly. Yeah,
But
because
he's
yeah,
also very proficient. So
yeah, you can definitely tell. Yeah, because I wouldn't imagine that question goes down very easily for everybody. But that's amazing that he was open to that creativity and just, again, those limitations. But I also like what you said. It kind of just really shows me that you are very methodical in your thinking, like knowing that you had to construct a project sonically that's quote unquote silly, but really
yeah.
be good at what you're doing because that's because you guys are so tight. I've seen, I know, countless, videos of you guys playing live, and like you guys are just so tight. It's just amazing. Yeah,
Yeah,
very, very cool.
we worked really hard at looking like we didn't work at all.
Yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I
that's
mean?
always how it is. Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Things that look really simple sometimes take more work because they're a little more raw and bare and open, and you can hear all this stuff
Hmm.
going on. So yeah. So the other thing we did sonically that was very purposeful, and one of the things I loved about the two-string and three-string guitar
Hmm.
option was that it opened up a hole sonically for the vocals to exist
Yes.
over this
Yeah.
kind of like warm, undulating bed of
Hmm.
riffs. There was, no high strings on the guitars screaming out, that kind of thing. Did the same thing with the drums. When Jason first joined the band, we got rid of all of his cymbals except for a tiny hi-hat,
Interesting. Okay. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and a tiny splash.
Hmm.
And then we gave him a wood block and a cowbell. And we're like,
Yeah. Yeah. You can
do,
definitely hear
do
the
more with
cowbell.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was
Yeah.
all about limitations, but those limitations weren't just, haphazard. They were
Hmm.
really designed to make something happen, like the vocals be clear and the
Hmm.
story and the imagery. I always felt like when you listen to music and you can't hear the vocals,
Hmm.
for me, I'm just missing out on a whole visual realm, a storytelling realm that I could be enjoying, but I can't because I can't
Yeah,
understand.
exactly. Yeah, and I know a lot of bands that consciously kind of downplay the vocals or just volume wise is lower so you can kind of lean in. And
Yeah,
I like that to some extent, but I agree with you. I
yeah.
think, especially in this sonic realm as well too. Yeah, that's what I love about what you just said. Exactly, is that you can hear the vocals. It gives you this whole new palette of things to work with, and yeah, it just sounds awesome for
Yeah,
sure.
because part of our gag was we're playing these rock songs and funky songs and whatever
Hmm.
at country all over the map. But what we're singing about is the lyrical content is perverting these styles of music
Right.
to kind of. So
Yeah.
if you couldn't hear the words, it would be missing a whole like
Yeah.
chemistry of friction between
Totally.
tradition and being irreverent and dorky.
Yeah, and I think, I've seen people, the genre makers, mention that it's kind of pop punk. How do you feel about that label? Because that's kind of rebellious in that own regard. So,
Yeah, only about 4 or 5 years ago, I came up with the perfect term for what the presidents did, and I'm
hmm,
sad I didn't come up with it at the time, but here it
yeah.
is, Funge.
Funge. I love it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
Because
definitely,
I really stole a lot of stuff from Nirvana and
oh, yeah.
Soundgarden, and
Hmm.
like the open tuning aspect and the
Right.
detuning and like the fuzz, the super fuzz big muff.
Yep.
Um,
I got one myself. Yeah.
Yeah, all of our tools were from the tradition of what was going on in Seattle, but then
Hmm.
again, we perverted it with
Yes.
our attitude and our lyrics, and energy level, I guess.
Funge, I love that. That's awesome.
Funge. It's fun grunge.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm fine with pop, whatever you want to call it,
Right, right.
post punky
Yeah, well,
pop.
that's good. Yeah, because some people get very touchy on that stuff. But yeah, I love Funge, definitely. But I was
Yeah.
also going to mention the cymbal thing because, yeah, I mean, I remember talking to people who knew Mark, and that was the biggest thing with Billy Conway and Jerome Dupree is always kind of taking away. And I think there was one tour where Mark took away all of Billy's cymbals and was just like, you're using that.
Yeah.
And it's what's a little bit different about my project is we do involve a little bit more, but now my drummer is becoming a little bit more aware of those sonic qualities, so he's using more cymbal stacks. So those become a little bit more percussive rather than ringing out. So the decay of them, really
Yeah.
goes away quicker. So it's
Yeah.
interesting
And
that you also are conscious of that as well.
yeah, and to Jason's credit, much like Dave saying okay to the three string thing, Jason said okay to the reduced drum set. He's
Hmm.
coming from being in Love Battery, which is a full
Right.
assault, psychedelic,
Hmm.
wishy-washy,
Yeah.
you know, heavy drum environment.
That's awesome. And that's really what I always take note of with other bandmates when I hear people like yourself and people I admire is these other musicians that you collaborate with are willing to work with those confinements and those limitations. Because, yeah, I remember we just did something not too long ago when we were talking about our project with my band. And the biggest thing that my drummer finally said, and I was like, oh, you actually finally get it during the interview. He was like, yeah, I have to really pare down and know my limitations. I'm like, oh, yes, finally you understand what I'm trying to
Yeah,
do with
yeah,
this.
yeah.
Yeah, Jason Finn was mentioned in a book I was reading not too long ago
Hmm.
By Mark Lanegan, Sing Backwards and Weep, the
Right.
memoir. But it was interesting to hear all you guys like living in that whole world of Seattle and such. So it was interesting to have Morphine was mentioned because of Spank the Monkey, I think is whatever the movie's called. And I guess
Hmm.
Mark Lanigan's album was supposed to be used for that movie, but then he backed out and Morphine ended up using it. And then he
Hmm.
also mentioned you guys. Did Jason Finn want to be a drummer for Screaming Trees? That's what I heard in the book.
I don't recall Jason ever saying that. I am currently very good friends with Barrett Martin,
Oh wow,
the actual drummer from the Screaming Trees.
that's amazing.
He and I
Yeah,
have been friends since the 90s. I was just as a sidebar, it was funny.
yeah,
I
yeah.
was in New York mastering what was I mastering? I think it was after we broke up and I was mastering the album Pure Frosting. And it was
Hmm.
my assignment to go to New York to do that. And Barrett was there mastering some other record. And we ended up going out for drinks afterwards and we've been friends ever since. So
Oh wow.
yeah, I love Barrett and Lisette, his wife. So no, I don't remember Jason saying to me that he wanted to
Yeah,
be.
maybe I got it
Maybe,
wrong, or you know how it is.
well, no, it could be movements that were happening before the president's,
That's
before I
true.
even entered Jason's
Probably
orbit.
so. Hmm.
It's probably early, grunge orbiting
Yeah, probably so. Yeah,
different
I believe it
planets.
was pretty early in both
Yeah.
iterations, I think, from what my
But
research
Martin
tells me.
Fevier, who did our live sound and engineered and produced a lot of our later records,
Hmm.
he was Mark Lanigan's go-to guy live and in the
Okay,
studio. So
gotcha.
actually, we listened. The presidents listened to Lanigan's first couple solo records while we were on tour a lot
Wow.
because they were
Yeah,
like an anecdote to our
right,
energy. And be like, all right, let's put like a spooky blanket on the
right.
energy while we're in
Yeah,
the van, while we're in the bus and then we'll explode when we get to the gig.
yeah, that
So
makes a
yeah,
lot of sense.
yeah, Lanigan's so Whiskey and the Holy Ghost,
Hmm.
and it was a real soundtrack to that
Right.
time. I
That's
haven't listened
that's
to that
amazing.
since.
Yeah, it's great.
I need
Yeah,
to.
I dug it out not too long ago, and
I
it's
saw him. He played here on Vashon about 3 years, 2 years ago, 3 years
that's
ago,
amazing.
at the Vashon movie theater with Mark Pickerel, or no, with
Wow.
what's his name, Jeff Fielder, a
Oh
multi
yes.
instrumentalist,
Uh-huh.
great multi
And was
instrumentalist.
that just the duo? Was it just
Yeah,
both of them? Yeah,
yeah,
I've seen footage of that tour, and I really wish I could have seen him before he
it was
left
amazing.
this earth. Yeah, because I read this is the second time I read the memoir. Interesting guy for sure, and I really just like how he captured that whole time. And I'm very fascinated and kind of obsessed about all you guys from that generation, and not
Yeah.
even trying to glorify it, but just really taking note of what things worked and why did they work. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. It was an interesting time. I mean, it was a very intense time for the whole city.
yeah, I
All
bet.
these eyes were on the entire city, and I say this, I've said this many times before, but I think it's why we were able to succeed because
Sure.
after the grunge bubble had crested, basically, people went out to see shows on a Tuesday night or a Wednesday night just because they're like, what's next? What's
Yeah.
next for Seattle? And
Yeah.
we planted our seeds in that fertile soil, and
Hmm.
bam, without that first sort of wave of interest, I don't think we would have, you know, been able to
Hmm.
succeed the way we did. So
Right. And what I love about that era too, and particularly just that whole scene, is that I think like it was exactly that. People were just hungry for like what is more goofy or weird or like all these experimental sounds, coming from
yeah,
that era. That's really what I love about it. It's like a was like a renaissance in some ways for sure. I think
yeah,
creatively. Yeah. So let's talk
yeah. It's
about your first debut album, which is self-titled from the band's name, The President's United States of America. And I was curious about the opening track,
mhm.
Kitty, and how did Meow, how did how did that come to be and the first song? Yeah.
Well, that actually has everything to do with Mark. I was living with Mark, and his roommate
Mm-hmm.
Amy had a cat named Chima.
Chima, yes, that's right.
Yeah, it was spelled very weird.
Yeah, it is spelled weird.
Chimbe.
Yeah.
Chumbi. It looks like Chumbi or something,
Yeah.
but so Chima was famous for the whole, like, purring as she navigates your
Right.
feet, and then when you reach down to pet her,
Yep.
she like
Oh yeah, we all know those kind of cats for
takes a
sure.
pound of flesh. So we were jamming in the living room, me and Mark, and I don't know who else was there, but we were just kind of jamming. And
Wow.
Chima walked up, and I was playing that riff, and I was like, "Kitty at my foot, and I want to touch it." So it really was about
That's
actual
amazing.
cat in the
I
moment.
love that.
So for a
Yeah.
long time, it was just an instrumental with the chorus, and then
Uh-huh.
this kind of funky banjo-y verse with no lyrics. And then when I got back to Seattle, that was one of the scraps that ended up. I showed it to Dave and Jason, and we kind of hammered it into a song. So
Yeah, those the power chord intro and just the drums and like and then it fades out and
yeah,
then the verse comes in. It's really catchy. I just love it.
it's it's us at one of our weirdest heights. Like.
Yeah, it's an awesome weird opening track for a debut album. It's perfect, I think. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
pretty
we tried
genius.
playing it first once live, and it
Mm-hmm.
didn't really work because it had too many hills and valleys.
Right.
We did it at a big show here in Seattle, like thousands and thousands of people were like, "Let's do that first," and it was kind of like, we need to put that like seventh.
Right. Yeah, it's always good to experiment on that kind of stuff for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But yeah, so Chima, I think also Mark wrote Sheila because of that cat,
yeah. It's
right?
true.
Yeah.
Yep, it
Gosh,
was a
this cat
Sheila
is
was
so
sort of.
famous.
I know Sheila was sort of a riff on Shima. Shima,
Right.
Shima.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I always
yeah.
talk to my girlfriend about it, and she knows the story now about Shima
Yeah.
and Kitty and Sheila, and yeah, I just it's so cool that that cat's pretty famous. I also have my own side note, is I played Sheila from Morphine one time at like a park, and we had it like on a speaker, and this black cat comes out of nowhere and just starts purring and just being around. No joke.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, this is yeah, something spiritual with cats. I don't know.
I wonder if that was Mark.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, and we never saw the cat again. We looked for it
Wow.
and it was just gone. Yeah, black cat would be Mark for sure.
Yeah, 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 totally.
But yeah, I just really admire you and just for the lack of better words, how goofy and silly how you embrace that just as a frontman and as a performer. And obviously for me it kind of reminds me of the goofiness of the 80s of Devo and those kind
Mm.
of bands like Danny Elfman as well too comes to mind. So yeah, can you tell us a little bit more about just that and how do you why do you embrace that and why does it feel good for you?
Yeah. Well, it feels good because it sort of feels like allowing the sort of child inside, or the childlike nature of your personality, to dominate. And that's a beautiful thing. I mean, after, not to jump ahead, to
Hmm.
jump around too much, but I did make music for 0 to 5 year olds for 12 years.
Right. Yeah, I want to talk about
And
that too. Yeah.
yeah, and that was
Was
even
that
better.
before? That
No,
was
that was
before?
after the
After.
president.
Okay. Yeah.
Kind of,
Okay.
they crossfaded a little
Hmm.
bit, but being a child mind, beginner's mind, there's all sorts of Zen and existential theory around inhabiting the childlike perspective, and that's really part of what I've been doing my whole life with music, is kind of not losing sight of the wonder of
Yeah.
looking at the world through a child's eyes and your own inner child's eyes, I guess. So yeah, it just always attracted me, and that's, I guess, why I was attracted to that kind of music. Like you mentioned, Danny Elfman, Oingo Boingo is one of
Yeah.
my favorite bands. I
Yeah.
love how weird and wacky and playful and surreal they were. And Wall of Voodoo was another one I
Yes.
loved.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Devo, of course.
Hmm.
And but then I also loved like Dead Kennedy. I thought the Dead Kennedys were on one level. They were angry, but they were
Yeah.
so angry it was like funny to me.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. I think that's a very good way to
So
put it.
yeah, so that's kind of just a foundational thing for me, is yeah, just staying in touch with that childlike perspective.
Yeah, I love that. Very well said. I can definitely relate to that. I think that's why I'm so attracted to the two and three stringed instruments is that
Mm.
I mean, I played guitar early in my career and just still fiddle around with it and some piano as well too in college, but it never really quite locked in for me. And then I discovered the two string concept and then Mark's use with the slide. And then I finally was like, that's it. That's finally
Mm.
what I've been looking for. And for lack of better words, I don't like the word crude, but I'm going to use it anyway because it just also feels so approachable as well too. And it kind of just shows
Yeah,
everybody who witnesses it that you too can do this.
exactly. And that
Yeah.
isn't that the core of punk rock is
Yeah,
do it
exactly.
yourself, you
Mm-hmm.
or sending a message from the stage that we're all here together. I'm no different than you. And I
Yeah.
agree. Playing that guitar behind me felt
Mm-hmm.
like playing a toy. I
Yes.
felt like we were pretending to be a rock band,
Right.
which in the early days, that's really what made us work, is like we were these three dorks who were trying to rock.
Yeah.
And the
Mm-hmm.
audience, I think, were like, go, little dorks, go,
Yeah.
we just want to put you in our pocket and keep you forever. And then we became a rock band when we had to
Yeah.
stand up in front of 50,000 people at a,
Mm-hmm.
Pink Pop or a
Yep.
festival or something. And it was less interesting. It was still fun,
Mm-hmm.
but it was less of that kind of like, it was more like we are up here, we are gods
Yeah.
commanding the masses,
Mm-hmm.
like
Right.
instead of we are just like you and we're playing toys and we're
Mm-hmm.
all in this together. So it was an interesting shift
Right.
in dynamics.
I just love what you said about the toy thing because yeah, I just recently constructed this most recent two-string bass, and this is an Airline, like your red
Wow.
one, and it's also a fiberglass body. And I was fortunate enough to find a left-handed version of it from a modern company that's no longer around, but used to make left and right-handed versions of them. But yeah, out of all of them that I play, and Jack White mentioned it as well too with his red Airline, just like
Mm.
yours, is that yeah, it does feel like a toy. It almost feels like it's gonna like fall apart while you're
Yeah.
playing it, and
Yeah.
just I love that.
As Paul McCartney said about the first guitar he got from his father, I think it was guaranteed not to crack.
Yeah.
Like guaranteed to not fall apart,
Mm-hmm.
which is,
Yeah,
sort
exactly.
of the
That's a good guarantee.
yeah, guaranteed not to crack. I kind of like that. I might need to do a song called
Yeah,
Guaranteed
that's pretty
Not
good.
to
I
Crack.
like that. Yeah, there's a lot of deeper meanings with that too, for
Yeah, I like
sure.
it.
And so for the two string behind you,
Yeah.
that's wasn't originally a guitar, correct? And then
Yes.
converted into, and I think the term that people have used, and maybe you coined it, was is bass tar. Bass
A
tars?
bass guitar.
Bass guitar. Yes.
There's the bass guitar, which is the two string, and the git bass is the three string.
Gotcha. Very
Yeah.
nice. So yeah,
And then,
so yeah,
and we would treat them like similar. Like I played through a bass amp, but
right.
and Dave played through a Fender Twin. I no, actually, I played through an accordion amp, is what I played
Really?
through. It's called a polytone.
Yeah, I was
I,
curious about your
I
rig.
highly recommend hunting one down. They're really incredible.
Okay.
I went to see a jazz trio somewhere, and the bass sounded so good. And I purposely noticed what amp is this guy
Mm-hmm.
using? It was a Polytone. So I went out and
Polytone.
bought one, and that sort of phasey, chorusy effect is a built-in effect, like on
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'm trying to think what song has it. I think Peaches has it at the beginning,
Yeah,
but
yeah. There's definitely some flange and some
yeah,
synth. Yeah.
that's in the amp. It's built
Oh,
in.
really?
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, I was
it was a
wondering if it was just a pedal, but it's the actual
it was
amp.
a remote foot switch for an in-amp effect.
Okay.
Uh,
Well, maybe you've just solidified the vintage kind of amp I'm looking for because I want to get at
yeah,
least one for sure. And
it's a Polytone. I think it had 115 in it.
okay.
Um, yeah, it was a fantastic amp. So it was really that thing through the accordion amp. And yeah, I bought it. It was a six string. I walked into a pawn shop between Central Square and Harvard Square when I was in living in Boston,
Mm-hmm.
and just walked in and saw this guitar and went, I don't even need to play it. that guitar is full of songs. I
Yeah.
just knew it.
Well, it just looks so cool too. I mean, with that
Yeah.
the aluminum pick guard, and I love that kind of stuff so much.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It
This
just
is
has the one humbucker, right?
it's not even a humbucker. It's like a microphonic. You can tap it.
Wow.
It's like
Yeah.
tap tap tap.
Yep. Yeah, I have one
That's
on
why
this one here. Yeah.
yeah, on Candy when I do the solo,
Hmm.
wow 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 wow, I'm singing it into that pickup.
Yeah. See, I want to do that too. And with I have this one, the black one here, very polyphonic. It's a '60s pickup from Supro,
Oh
and
yeah.
you can sing through it as well too. So I'm definitely gonna do something like that because you
Yeah.
have to. I mean, you just have to. It just sounds so cool.
Yeah, and it gave it kind of a rubber bandy, kind of clicky. Again, even the sound coming out of it sounded like a toy. So,
Right.
and here's an interesting little footnote. This is from a Treater Wright sticker that I cut up.
Oh, wow. Okay. I love that too.
I
I
used to
love
love
these
to
little
cut.
stories.
I used to love to cut up stickers and make my own stuff. So
Right.
I could come up with from Treater Wright was grr.
Yeah, it works with the cat too. I love those
Yeah.
cat stickers.
Used to
Yeah.
be a devil, but the devil fell off, so I found a
Mm,
cat sticker. And
that's
then this is
perfect.
Urge Overkill. I was a huge Urge Overkill fan. It was like a little medallion that
Oh,
came with
wow. I
it.
love that there's three too. Three is a great number.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's that Blind Melon song, or they covered it. There was a Schoolhouse Rock song. Three is the magic number.
Oh yeah,
I
three.
remember I remember that one as a little kid, and my mom always loved it because it's just me. It's about, one of the verses is about a dad, a mom, and a kid, and she's like,
Yeah,
"Oh, that's like us," and I always remembered that. So
yeah. It takes three
three's always
legs to
been,
make a table stand. Yeah,
yeah, that's a
I
great
remember
song.
that. It's a great song, and De La Soul did an amazing job sampling that.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I gotta check that out again. I forgot about that.
What does it all mean? I love that
I do
shit.
too. Yeah, that stuff
So yeah,
sounds
that
good.
guitar, I mean, I still use it to this day. It's not tuned C sharp, G sharp. In the Presidents, we were all C sharp, G sharp, C sharp, tuning. It's D. I'm more in D now these days, and I'm
Oh,
playing
okay.
six string as
Mm-hmm.
evidenced by
Yeah, for
that.
sure.
But I still have some interesting three strings. This is my workhorse,
Oh
butterscotch.
yes, yeah. That's a three string as well too, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a Harmony Hollywood.
Oh, that's gorgeous too. Yeah, I've
This
seen you playing it
guy.
in a couple videos.
Yeah, I've done, I don't know, I think about 1,300 shows with this guitar.
Wow.
This is my pal for a long time. Ah, so yeah, I really don't have very many guitars, but they
Mm-hmm.
all do something.
Well, they all have such unique qualities as well too, and you got to hang on to that red Airline because those are coveted nowadays because of Jack White. So
Well, I would never get rid of it. I mean, well,
yeah.
the story with that guitar is one day, I think obviously before Mark passed away. I think it was 97
Mm-hmm.
or 98 maybe. Yeah, it was 98. I had just gone out to hang out with him to write a song for the Mod Squad movie.
Oh wow.
And
Okay.
he's like, Chris, I'm out of ideas. I don't know what I'm going to do. Fly to Boston and let's hang out and we'll make a song for this movie. And I went, and back in the 90s when we were hanging out and living together, we would just improvise. We have all these songs that we made on his 8-track that are
Right.
hilarious.
Yeah.
His back, my back went out and his back went out, and we both had back braces on. So we
Oh
made this
geez.
incredible song called Back Brace.
Oh nice. I
Pass me
love
the
that.
back brace, baby. It
I
was
love
it
that.
was super silly.
That is
But
cool.
we came up with this song. Mark ended up salvaging a section of a jam and made a song out of it, but we really were not, it was funny, we were not clicking like we used
Mm-hmm.
to. And
Yeah.
we were both kind of dry creatively. And I remember one moment where we were listening back to an extended jam we had just done. And in my mind, I was thinking, this isn't working. I don't know why this isn't working. And
Mm.
I thought, we're fucked. And, and Mark paused. He finished playback and hit stop and looked at me and said, "We're fucked." That's so amazing. We were just like, bzz.
Yeah,
So
that's
anyway,
crazy.
bottom line is, so I played that guitar as a two-string during that session, and it had continued to live with Mark since my epiphany when I picked it up in his
Mm-hmm.
studio in 92 or whatever it was.
Wow.
So after that session, one day, UPS showed up at my door, big box, and I open it up, and it's this guitar and a little note, and the note just says, "You are in charge of this now."
That's amazing.
He didn't warn me that it was coming or anything. He just sent it
Wow.
and never gave me any heads up. So, well, that was late 98, and then he died, in
Yeah,
July of 99.
99.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Wow.
that was
Yeah, I
the
didn't
last
realize
time.
it was that close to that timeline of him leaving this earth. Yeah, that's
Yeah, it was amazing that he just gifted it to me out of the ether.
definitely. Well,
So
before
yeah,
we, bef-
I will never get rid of that guitar. That is,
yeah, that is a treasure.
yeah, and I play with the strings on it all the time. Like I said, right now it's a six string, but
Hmm. That's great.
it goes all over the map.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about Boston and Mark as well too with you. So how long did you live with him?
Boy, that is a good question, and I have I've tried through clues to kind
Mm-hmm.
of like solidify my time. I was bouncing between. I moved to Boston in 87, or no, 88,
Mm-hmm.
spring of 88, and I left really kind of for good in the winter, in like December or January of 93.
Mm-hmm.
So, and somewhere in there, I lived with Mark for on and off. I'd like come there and paint houses in the summer and then go
Mm-hmm.
to Seattle and live with my parents and play music with people and then back and forth. So I really don't remember. I
Wow,
can't.
that's crazy.
I
Well,
mean,
that's
it
still
was,
a somewhat a good timeline for sure.
yeah, it was a decent, it was a, on and off probably for a year and a half ish, kind of. And I was staying in his roommate Amy's
Mm-hmm.
art studio. She wasn't really using it at the time. So um, and it worked out great. I had a little 4 track, and Mark and I would, hang out and smoke pot and make up weird stuff.
Yeah, that's
it,
amazing.
it was a really good time. I remember one specific memory when he turned 40. It kind of freaked him out, and
Yeah, I
he
bet.
got a
Yeah.
little morose around the time of his 40th birthday coming up, and he sat down at the uh, main table there in the dining room area and tallied up all the cigarettes he'd smoked, all the alcohol he consumed, all the pot he'd smoked, just this like, all the bad food he'd eaten or whatever.
Right.
He just did this like life
Wow.
tally of evils, and then threw it away, and that night we had a birthday party, and he was totally excited and happy and fine. It was funny. I guess, I don't know what it was. I guess he needed to just sort of understand how much fun he'd had.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and
Just
kind of yeah,
something.
to tally it up is an interesting thing to do for
I
sure.
know. Well, he was the kind of guy, like if he wanted to get into playing tennis, he would spend a year and a half researching the shoes,
Oh
like
wow. Okay.
he was
Yeah.
really into like the minutia of like the algebra of how things work, or
Mm-hmm.
the geometry, or whatever, the quantum aspects of anything were interesting to him without him really knowing that he was, getting that deep. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, he was, but he's also the kind of person where if he called me and said, "Hey, I just researched this piece of gear, you need to buy it," I'd be like, "Okay," because he really
Wow.
researched, like,
Yeah.
yeah, I was a 4 track cassette guy,
Mm-hmm.
and then he got me into the 8 track version,
Right.
uh, and just sort of insisted that I do that. That way we could trade tapes too.
Right.
I could send him a tape, or he could send me a tape, and which we didn't do a lot of, but
Mm-hmm.
anyway, the potential was there. So,
Yeah, I
and
know he did that a lot with
Dana,
morphine. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Billy and Dana had the same machines, so we
Right.
could all theoretically.
Yeah, that's definitely analog new technology for that time period is I mean, I get
It's
it. I
it
mean, that's
sounded
awesome.
really good, actually.
Yeah.
The 8 track cassette. Yeah, it had
Yeah, a
tape
lot of those
compression.
things, yeah. I think a lot of those tape sessions they've morphines used and released and they sound amazing. And I just yeah, I really
Yeah,
want to get my hands on one of them because I think it was a Tascam, right? Is what it was?
yeah, Tascam MK2 or something.
Yeah.
Or oh, wait, what? Shit, I can't remember. I looked it up online at one point, but yeah, it's the he had the kind that had VU meters
Mm-hmm.
on it,
Right.
and I had the kind of simpler kind that just had LED
That's
meters.
really cool. Yeah, I
Yeah,
love that stuff for sure. I love vintage everything.
yeah.
Especially in music. But yeah, that's interesting that you mentioned the research part about Mark because I'm very similar in that way, and it's reassuring to hear. Because yeah, before I discovered this stuff, and I found Mark's music and Morphine's music when I watched The Sopranos, and I
Mm,
was listening to one of the episodes. They play Buena in the episode, and then at the end credits, and that's when it first finally clicked when I heard that stuff. But my point is like I researched a lot of the stuff he used, and then I stumbled upon you as well too, and was
mm.
just reassuring. So I didn't realize. So because of his concept for the two-string thing, that's what created the presidents of the United States. Is that what I'm
Yeah,
understanding? That's crazy.
yeah. Mark, without me knowing Mark and understanding the two-string thing, I don't think the Presidents would not have happened the way
That's
it
crazy.
did.
Right.
Would have been just another band where I'm playing six-string acoustic
Hmm.
guitar, and
Yeah.
kind of stuck in a rut. But yeah, he really. And I remember when we strung up that guitar to be a two.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
No, it must have been this one.
Hmm.
He had a box full of strings and a pair of precision calipers.
Hmm.
So we would put strings on the guitar and tune it and tighten them up and try to figure out what key it was trying to be in and
Hmm.
how it fit my voice. We spent like a whole afternoon like trying to figure out what the gauges were, what the open tuning should be for me. And so that was a really kind of also like
Wow.
mathematical, uh, analytical process that we went through to
Yeah, I
get.
didn't realize that.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done the same thing for sure, but to match the voice, that's really genius. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, because
that's crazy.
we didn't know we were in C sharp at
Hmm.
first. Because again, we really went to like, well, what feels good as far as it's got to have a bit of, depth to it, but it also has to not be in a weird place for
Right.
like range. So yeah, it was all considered.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
you're tuned to A D like Mark was?
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I switch between that and C and G and then A and A as well too. And I think he only took the one that was really the best in, I think it's D sharp or something like that because it's the tuning of Whisper. But I think he stole the only good riff because I cannot find a good riff beyond the one he wrote for that one.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
but that's crazy. What gauge
Yeah, and what's
did you end
also
up
funny
using?
about, you talk about Funge and our
Hmm.
sort of inherent connection to that world of grunge. When we tune down to C sharp, which is, everybody tunes to D for heaviness, but then if you go one
Yeah.
more, that's even heavier. And we
Yes, it
didn't
does.
know,
Yeah, it
but
is.
I think subconsciously a lot of like Soundgarden songs and stuff like that were in C sharp.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
And a lot of other alternative grunge stuff was in this super drop tuning of C sharp. So somehow that might have helped us, be just that much more unconsciously referential being
Hmm.
in C sharp. So it was once we learned we were in C sharp and once we learned how many other songs were in C sharp, we're like, oh, okay, we're just kind of like
Right.
sampling the vibe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. Yeah, it's cool that you're aware of that because yeah, I totally agree with that. There's definitely a lot of Soundgarden um, songs that are in that tuning for sure. That's so
Yeah.
cool. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
sharing that. What is your best memory and what is your worst memory? What is the silliest memory? I think you might have already shared that one with Mark Sandman.
Okay. Best memory was anytime I made him laugh out loud. He was a funny, funny guy, and but sort of defaulted to what everyone thought was like a stoic,
Right.
mysterious, heavy kind of, dark, cloudy personality. But really, he was just kind of like, stewing in his own thoughts a lot of the time and kind of
Yeah.
rolling things around in his mind and kind of distant. But if I could get him to laugh out loud and like I used to call him Pez because
Uh-huh.
when he laughed really hard, his head would
Yeah,
pop like a Pez dispenser.
That's amazing. Yeah.
So we referred to ourselves as Casper and Pez for a
Oh,
while
nice. That's great.
because I
Yeah.
was going as Casper Baby Pants and back
Right,
then.
right. Yeah, yeah.
So Casper and Pez
Casper and Pez. I
are
love
like
that.
our gang names.
That sounds like
So yeah,
that one song from Towns Van Zandt, Poncho and Lefty.
yeah, yeah. There you go.
I
We
like
were
that.
Casper and Pez.
I might use that for something. That's cool. Casper
Sure,
and
sure.
Pez. That's awesome.
So to make Mark Pez was my favorite thing. The darkest time is when he passed away, and we all
Yeah.
gathered in his loft and slept there overnight in preparation for the tribute concert that happened
Right.
there in Central Square I think I was there for a week or so, and we took about 3 or 4 days to get that show together and then do it. I mean, Mark wasn't there, but he was kind of there,
Yeah.
because we were in his. I mean, a lot of that studio space felt like you were walking around in his mind.
Yeah. I
It was
bet.
like the way he had it set up, it was like a big brain. And so being there after
Yeah.
he passed away and getting ready for that show was almost like curling up in his mind for a few nights.
Wow.
But
That's very
very,
deep. Yeah.
yeah, very sad. So obviously that's the low point.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Silliest silliest time was definitely as supergroup playing live
Yes.
shows.
I wanted to talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, making each other crack up I had one experience during the supergroup thing, which was unbelievable. We were doing a gig at Plow and Stars. It was going to be like a 3-hour night. We're jamming along. About an
Wow.
hour plus into it, Mark's like, I need a break. And I said, I don't. So I'm just going to keep playing. And we had Mickey Bones on drums, which is one of our rotating. We had
Hmm.
a rotating cast of drummers. And so Mickey and I just sort of, I was playing that is the red Airline, and we just sort of dug in and we're kind of grooving along. And then we just get more and more deeper and groovier and kind of twangier and funkier. And I close my eyes and we're playing this thing and we're just kind of getting into it. And unbeknownst to me, our friend Joe Davis had approached the stage. Joe had a peg leg made out of aluminum, and it rang like a fire bell if you hit it. So
Wow.
I had
Oh
no
my
idea
God.
because my eyes are closed
Uh-huh.
and I'm playing this
I
thing.
think I know where this is
And
going.
and then we all of a sudden just intuitively, Mickey and I shift into this like deep, lower, like funkier gear. And simultaneously, this ringing bell joins the sound that I hear with my eyes closed. And I open my eyes and I see the band I'm in. I'm like, I look and there's this like elfin guy on the drums. There's this man with a giant beard and a peg leg sticking up.
Wow.
The elf on
Yeah.
the drums is playing his leg like a fire bell. And I see myself, and then I shot out of my body and I shot to the ceiling, and I could see the whole thing from
Right.
above. I had a total out of body experience, and then
Wow.
boom, back in. And it was the most transcendental musical moment I've
That's
ever had. I think
incredible.
I spent the rest of my life chasing that
Right.
moment.
Yeah, that's definitely something to chase for
So,
sure.
I mean, it was a moment. Mark was involved, but he was watching us from the bar. So,
That's amazing. That is a
yeah.
great memory. Wow.
Oh
Thank
my
you
God,
so much
so
for sharing
good.
that. Yeah, what's so interesting about all these stories that I've heard from yourself and a lot of other people that knew Mark and just that whole scene is, I think the biggest thing I'm envious of is just number one, the studio, the High and Dry studio, and just even after his passing, people being there and, like you said, being in his mind and
Yeah,
really understanding the craft and just knowing him as that way. But even beyond him is like all these little community stories. You know, you had the friends that would play drums and hop on the drums. I sadly sometimes don't get that as often as I think it used to be back then. I think people just don't have enough time on their hands. People are always
mm.
trying to work so much, and I don't know, just the vibe seems very different. It seems like a time I really wish I could be a part of,
Well, I
simply
think
because of the community aspect, you know?
yeah, and I think technology has something to do with that
Yeah,
aspect
I agree.
being atrophied because everybody can squirrel away at home and do the thing.
Yeah,
And that's fine. That's
yeah.
just like, I do it. I'm kind of through collaborating at this point
Hmm.
by choice,
Hmm.
and I'm really working on my own. But Mark was like a hub of a wheel, and all the spokes were all these people that he could pull in and draw from and mix and match. And his
Hmm.
studio was like the proving ground for all these experiments.
Right.
And yes, we all had a lot of time on our hands because we weren't binging the newest Netflix series and we weren't at home with
Right.
our laptops tracking our solo albums. So
Right.
we depended on someone like Mark to, synthesize all these experimental combos of people
Right.
like Russ Gershon and the Either Orchestra, and oh God, all these musicians were coming and going all the time. So yeah, it's just, and that's a lot of the reason that we played music at all was
Hmm.
that we were bored. And
Right. Right. Yeah.
like, sure, I'll play a 3-hour improvisational gig at the Plow and Stars as supergroup because what
Right.
else are we going to do on Thursday night?
Yeah, it's a Thursday night. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's something, it's so simple, I think, and a lot of people seem to not understand that, unfortunately. And I obviously have very
Well,
wonderful collaborators and etc. But
yeah.
yeah, it's still sometimes. I think I mean it also too about just finding a community space like that locally is hard to find because I know you had that venue, but then there was also the what is the one that was in Boston? I'm missing the name now. That
Uh,
Morphine
there,
played a lot
there
at.
was the Middle
The
East.
Middle East, that's what I'm referring
Yeah.
to. Yeah. So, and I remember a lot of people referring to the Middle East Club as a place where you could just go and experiment and try these new
Yeah.
sounds, and the
Oh,
audience
yeah.
was down to that.
Oh, man.
And yeah,
You
that's
should
really
go
cool.
on YouTube and see a video of me and my experimental band Down
I'd love
playing.
to. Yeah,
Oh my
I'll
God,
look
we
that
were
up.
we were just a steaming pile of crap, but we played a show with
Right,
no
right.
idea what we were doing. It's me and my friend Greg, or my roommate Greg, and Phil Franklin, who was a
Mhm.
drummer that I was in a band since college with. And oh my God, it's really bad. But wonderful thing is Billy Ruane, who was in charge of that whole scene,
Uh-huh.
he set up a video camera back by the soundboard and videotaped all these shows. So if you go on YouTube and
Hmm.
type in Middle East, Hoodoo Gurus or Middle East Pavement, there's a great Pavement show on there.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Or me, you can find all these.
Hmm.
My band was called Egg back then, so you
Yes.
can
Yeah. I remember. Yeah.
Middle
Hmm.
East Egg and find some. I watch it and I'm like, I have no memory. There is
Yeah.
one show I remember actually, but most of it is just like, look, there's me at 24.
Yeah.
I have no idea what I was thinking.
Right. Well, that's just so beautiful in the way that it just everybody allowed permission. They gave each other permission just to do these things
Yeah,
and
yeah,
just
yeah.
try it out. I just
I
love
think
that so
that still
much.
exists. I mean, it
Yeah,
exists
it does for
in a
sure.
digital way. Like,
Hmm.
people are collaborating that way. Like on Instagram, people are constantly
Yeah.
like, jamming along with each other's stuff. It's a little different though, because it's not like a scene where then you would maybe go out and have some lunch and hang out and get to
Right.
know each
Get to
other.
know each other beyond
But
that.
I
Yeah.
think that stuff still exists, and I don't
Hmm.
think it'll ever fully go away. I just think
Yeah.
that the bandwidth that the sort of solo kind of technology separating people dynamic gets more attention. It takes up more
Right.
bandwidth
Hmm.
in the landscape. But
Yeah,
people
I agree
people
for
are
sure.
still getting together.
Yeah, I mean, I host my own open mic here, a couple times a month, and
Oh yeah.
trying to we it's currently more poets and actors, but and we always occasionally have musicians, but we're trying to make it even more musical as well too, because my other friend is a guitarist and we collaborate on stuff as well too, is wanting to do that because we're wanting to build that, and I always just adopt the concept of like if it doesn't exist, then you just create it, and so just hearing
Yeah.
these stories are kind of reaffirming for that for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Going back to that other time you were talking about when you and Mark were not quite gelling, correct me if I'm wrong, but did you play bass on "You're an Artist," the
Yeah,
song?
that's the song.
That's
That's
the
the
song,
song.
right? Okay,
Yeah.
I thought so. I love that song. I mean,
Yeah.
that's probably one of
It's
my
pretty
go-to songs all the
it's pretty
time.
great. At the time I was like, because I knew how we struggled
Yeah,
in that session, and I don't remember. See, we created a bunch of stuff. Then I was like, "Sorry, Mark, it didn't work." I left,
right.
and then he made that out of
Oh,
that
okay. So he kind of just looped
section.
it all together and put it
He made
together.
that later. Well, I think it's just a section of us
Right.
playing. I don't remember. I don't remember who was playing drums.
Because
It
you were
probably.
on bass. Did you come up with the main riff of that?
Yeah.
I love that riff so fucking much. It's
Yeah,
so cool.
I think that was a four-string bass actually, because
Wow. Okay.
he had sent no, he hadn't sent me that yet. It might have been
Hmm.
that guitar. I don't know. Um, so yeah, that's the track. That's me and Mark's last collaboration.
Wow, I didn't realize that. Yeah, it's definitely one of my favorite songs. I always play it when I'm like down and out. I'm like, okay, you're an
Yeah.
artist.
I love let him
Yeah,
look at
look
your
at your
tits.
tits. Yeah, I love it. Yeah,
That's
that's
so
so cool.
great.
I get to talk to somebody who was part of that. That's amazing. Thank you
Yeah,
for
yeah.
that. Thank
I
you
can
for
just
being
picture
part of
him
it.
he had this electric typewriter where it had it was electronic. You could change the font
Hmm.
and stuff,
Oh,
and
that's cool.
it was just like a regular typewriter, but it
Hmm.
was this like bizarre kind of Word doc hybrid thing. I can just picture him, joint in his mouth, like writing those lyrics.
That's amazing.
In fact, just strangely, just this morning, I went
Uh-huh.
into a box of papers and stuff. I was looking for a book, and I found some letters from Mark and that were
Wow.
done on that typewriter, all kind of askew and weird.
Hmm.
I was thinking maybe I should reach out to Sabine and get copies of those to her for the
Yeah, that'd
archive.
be cool. Yeah, because they're archiving everything, and I think that's another thing that I took away from Mark and all you guys is like the concept of archiving everything. And also Nirvana really
Yeah.
taught me that. Kurt Cobain as well too, because he had the similar technology because he was of the same generation. But I remember listening early in my career, listening to Nirvana's early demos, and you're like, wow. And then, but eventually, like, wow, that became Come As You Are, that became In Bloom, and it's like that was always reassuring. But like this whole concept of years and years of refinement and just
Yeah.
keeping at it, just
Oh
keep
yeah, yeah.
doing it,
The
you
music
know.
I'm making now is heavily based in that idea. In fact, I'm I'm finishing songs in some cases that I started in 1981.
Right.
Like that were just shitty. You know,
Yeah,
I had two boom boxes, and I would go back and forth and
that's really cool. Yeah,
balance, and they just sound terrible. But
right.
in there somewhere, I found
Yes.
in the
There's a
DNA
nugget. Yep.
is this idea, or there's a
Hmm.
riff, or there's a
Yep.
sound, or
Totally.
something that I can like graft and build off of. And that's super thrilling. I'm a major archivist. I have thousands and thousands of what I call raw poo
Yes. Yeah,
fragments.
exactly. Yeah.
And sometimes I just put that playlist on random and wait for something to go, oh, what's that? You know, so and
Yeah, it's yeah, that's
some of
great.
them are me and Mark. I've got some recordings that I don't
I'd
think
love to
we
hear
recorded.
those. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would really like to hear those. Yeah, those should be archived and released if you're comfortable on the website too. That'd be cool.
Yeah, we'll see. I think some of them did get released on
Hmm.
Sandbox. I think
Yes.
Sandbox has
Yeah,
a
I
couple.
have that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I found a rare copy of it. It was expensive. It was like it was $102, but my girlfriend got it for
Wow.
me for my birthday, and I was like, wow, it's just really cool to see all you all involved in that. So you cut the 45, right? The 7-inch single for that you guys did as supergroup, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I like the Xerox
Oh
faces.
wait, now that's a memory. That's a
Yeah.
memory. We went to, was that a Halloween party at the Harvard Lampoon building, which is this pie-shaped building in the middle of the campus,
Oh wow.
where the Harvard Lampoon offices are, where they do like their satirical paper, which
Oh
was the
wow.
birthplace, I think, of a lot of like later Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, I was about to say it sounds familiar where you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we went to a party. We took mushrooms together and went to the party. And this building is already like forced
Right. Yeah,
perspective
it's a
because
slice of
it's
pie.
wedge shaped. So
Yeah.
you're inside, and it's all everything's kind of like bigger at the back and
Yeah.
smaller at the front. And we went in the basement and found the Xerox machine and put our faces on the machine and and took
I
that
love it.
Xerox. So every time I look at that, I think about
Yeah.
tripping Mark at the Lampoon building on Halloween.
That's it. See, that's yeah. See, that's why I'm doing these conversations. I just love
Nobody's
that.
ever revealed that detail
I don't
before.
think so, no. And see, it makes me want to find it and buy it and have it more now that I know that story.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
have extra copies. I can send you some
I
if you
would
want.
love a copy. Yeah. Yeah, we'll definitely
Yeah, but,
talk about
you
that.
know, Deb Klein is setting up shop with her boyfriend here on Vashon. So she's clearing out storage spaces and stuff. So she was
Oh
over
wow.
at the house hanging out, and she's like,
Uh-huh.
"Here, take a stack of singles."
Yeah, please. Yeah, I'll
So,
definitely email you about that because yeah, I would appreciate it greatly. If and obviously if you sign it, that'd be even cooler.
yeah. It's funny because one of the letters I found this morning was Mark responding to what I guess was me griping a bit about the song selection, kind of like,
Oh yes.
we could have put a better song on there. And Mark, yeah, we could have, but you know what? It was fast. We did it fast. We didn't think, just like supergroup is,
Right.
just
I mean, well, still people want it, so that yeah, that's cool.
yeah. It's an artifact. I love
Yeah.
I remember when we made up Telepathic Kathy. That felt really cool. I loved that song. Telepathic
Yeah,
Kathy.
that's a great one. I love that too. Just the rhyme scheme is just awesome.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's funny because he has multiple. I've heard multiple versions of the "Be Like the Old Days," and it's cool that you were part of one of them on the 7-inch single. Because
Yeah, that was me playing the little
yeah,
a little sampler,
that's really cool.
screwing
Yeah,
around on
I
a
just love
synth.
the concept too of like "Be Like the Olden Days" and where everybody
Yeah.
had a job and all that
I
stuff.
love in that song. I love he punched in his vocals on Club a Rabbit,
Yes,
and it's so awkwardly louder, and it
it is.
always made me laugh so hard because he wanted to just get it down. It was a demo. He didn't
Right.
have the patience to like do it right, but it's just such a funny moment. What happened to the
I
old
think it
days
works.
when we could go outside and Club a Rabbit?
It works so well, though. I think it's just
Yeah.
funny how those things work.
I love that moment. I love it.
That's
In fact,
amazing.
sometimes when I'm punching in one line and it sounds a little off, I'll just leave it out of like respect for that Club a Rabbit line.
That's amazing. Yeah,
Like,
all those little things. So let's
yeah.
talk a little bit more about your music. Obviously, the
Yeah.
iconic #1 song that's played off of your Spotify Lump. How did that come to be? Because it starts off with just drums, and then your vocals come in. Like, was it written like that, or I guess, what was the writing process of forming that song?
That was gosh, that was okay. That was a case back before I had computers to keep track of my archive. I had little micro cassettes and a
Hmm.
micro cassette player. And I would purposely kind of not listen hard to it. I just put the cassette in, turn it on, and clean up my room or do the dishes or whatever, and wait for something to make me go, hmm? You
Hmm.
know. And there was me on the tape going, it's lump, it's in my head. And I went, whoa, what's that? And
Hmm.
immediately kind of developed it into she's lump. I didn't have a 4-track at the time. For some reason, I was in a very intense minimalist stage. I was like, I
Nice.
don't need that. I don't
Yeah.
need this.
Yeah, I
And I
get
got
that.
rid of
I get
everything
like that
except
too. Yeah.
I got rid of everything except, my guitar, some cassettes, a little monophonic tape deck, and a pencil and a piece of pad of paper or whatever.
That's really cool.
So anyway, I knew my neighbors had a 4-track. My neighbors were Lori and Kyle. Lori Goldston later played cello with Nirvana.
Oh, wow. Yeah, of course. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So,
Wow.
and I knew her because we had done, there was a thing in Seattle. This is getting very detailed, but
No, I love the details. Yeah.
there's a thing in Seattle called Nitrate Visions when I moved back in the early 90s. And it was a thing where we would meet on Wednesday nights and we'd all look at silent movies and we'd each pick one and we'd score it.
Oh, wow. Yeah, we do. I've done something like that. That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we'd perform them on that Saturday night live. You'd do it live.
Yeah.
And so Lori had done a couple of those, and then the Black Cat Orchestra did a full length silent movie, which was her band with Kyle,
Oh,
her
wow.
boyfriend. And anyway, so I ran over to Lori's and I was like, "Can I borrow your 4-track?" And went back and did this kind of weird. Had a Casio. It wasn't even a Casio. It was like a Radio Shack
Oh,
knockoff
nice. Yeah,
Casio
yeah.
that I used for the beat and everything. So it was this kind of loungy, dingy, clattery version of that. And then when I showed it to the band, we just, like in That Thing You Do, that Tom Hanks movie, we just ratcheted up the energy and there it was. It was Conrad's idea to mute the instruments for the first verse.
Okay.
Conrad Uno, who ran the studio where we
Right.
recorded.
Okay. So like
He's like,
your
what?
producer, recording
Yeah,
producer? Yeah.
producer,
Mm-hmm.
engineer. He's like,
Nice.
what if we mute the instruments at the, because it was my attempt to do like a Buzzcocks song, and there's one
Okay.
Buzzcocks song, and I
Yeah.
can't remember the title, but it starts sounding as if it's been going for the last 5 minutes,
Yeah.
and it just like hits the
Right.
ground running. So my idea was like, let's do a hits the ground running, short, sharp, poppy,
Mm-hmm.
weird song a la Buzzcocks, and early performances of that song were not great
Mm-hmm.
because our funky kind of country funky weird shit definitely got people moving. And
Yeah.
when we played that song at early shows before it was a hit or anything, it was kind of a dead spot.
Interesting. That is
Yeah,
interesting to
but
note.
then it
Huh.
got picked. It got picked by Columbia as a solo
Right.
single.
Right.
So we did a couple. We did 2 videos for it actually,
Oh,
and
two. Okay. I didn't know that.
there was a alternate version, and that's what catapulted it into
Wow.
it being a hit. But
Right.
it was definitely a miss before that.
That's good to know. Yeah, that's pretty reassuring to know because, yeah, I mean, I'm sure you've written things that you're like, you're sure people are going to be like, yeah, and then they're not. And then the ones you're like, it's like, it's a song, then you're like, oh, wow, people really like this one. That's interesting.
I know.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
it's a
funny.
great tune. I mean, that downbeat, all of it, it just screams like this is like a number one song for sure. And obviously it
Yeah.
became one. So how did Weird Al get involved? Was it like a phone call or?
Um, he does the courtesy of asking permission. He doesn't have to, technically, for
Hmm,
parody songs.
that's
You
true.
don't
Yeah.
have to, but he does it because he's that kind of guy. He's
Nice.
a stand-up human. So I don't remember how I got asked. I think through our lawyer or
Mm.
manager or
Mm-hmm.
something, and just said, "Of course, yes. Oh my God, And then it dawned on me. It didn't immediately dawn on me, but did later that, oh my God, he's going to be playing me,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
having
Yeah.
grown up like glued to MTV in the 80s
Mm-hmm.
watching, and he was part of that landscape and
Yes.
just
Yeah.
part of that world that seemed to me as a kid so far away and
Yeah.
so
Definitely.
unattainable, like a distant planet. And lo and behold, decades later, here he is playing me in the
Wow.
video.
That's
And
amazing.
we've become good friends since. I'm still friends with him and still talk to him. And I just actually crashed his show a few months ago, and we did he was doing a show where it was called the Ridiculously Ill-Advised Self-Indulgent Tour or something like
Oh,
that.
yes. Right.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
he was doing a song by, in the encore, they would do a song by a band from whatever city they were in the encore. And so the first Seattle show of 2 was Peaches.
Oh,
So
wow.
we engineered a thing where he did the bulk of Peaches, and then for the whole end part, I kind of came out with a mic and like
Wow. That's very
hijacked
cool.
hijacked the show.
That's
Anyway,
incredible.
we have a long history. He produced a video for us. We've had countless meals together and hung out in LA and Seattle, and he's played live with us like 3 or 4 times. My favorite of those was when we covered "More Than a Feeling" by
Wow.
Boston,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
which was the song I listened to every day as I was writing the songs for the President's album, to kind of
Oh,
reset my
interesting.
mind,
Okay.
to be calibrated towards pure pleasure, because I
Right.
feel like that song is just pure sugar,
Yeah,
So
definitely.
every morning I would hit play and it would go, woke up this morning and the sun was gone. I put on some music to start my day. It was like a Mobius strip of self-reference.
Yeah, I get that for
Anyway, it
sure.
was my dream to play that song live, and Al had to go out and buy, against his religion, he went out and bought a digital accordion so he could
Oh,
transpose to
wow.
C
Yeah.
sharp,
Huh.
because playing in C sharp on a keyboard is too
Yeah, I'd
weird.
imagine. Yeah.
So
Wow.
anyway,
That's
lots
very
of,
cool.
again, details.
No, I love the details. Yeah, I think it was honestly his parody of your song Gump that got me into discovering the original version because I
Oh
remember
yeah.
I used to go to the library and get the Weird Al Yankovic on VHS, all the culminations of his songs, and I
Yeah.
definitely loved that one for sure because
Cool.
I,
Well,
yeah,
that they say there's such a thing as the Weird Al bump, when
yeah.
he parodies your song and all your sales go
Oh,
up.
I'm sure. Yeah, that does not surprise me at all.
So currently I'm making records, solo records, under my own name, Chris Ballew. You can just plug that into whatever streaming service. I've got 4 records out. I've got a fifth one coming out in July
Nice.
called Laying Low. Um, and it is a volcano of songs. I've been writing less kind of visual, silly, funny stuff, and more from a perspective of kind of a nurturing my spirituality,
Oh, cool.
consciousness, what it means to be human, ego management, love, fear, death, birth,
Sounds great. Yeah, I can't wait
nature.
to hear it. I love the
Yeah,
title.
it's really been fun because it's more poetically impressionistic vocals, like kind of energetic. I'm improvising in a way that I did with supergroup, but I'm definitely I'm swimming in waters that are a little more abstract and intuitive.
That sounds great. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
very cool.
really fun because the songs kind of morph and change, and they don't necessarily come out fully formed, but just like, my songs from 1981, there's the intention is in there, and I just have to
Right.
tease it out. So I end up like rewriting lyrics a lot and reforming things, and it's more like sculptural and malleable. Anyway,
That's great.
and the music in the end is supposed to help people chill out, and
Nice. Yeah.
I hope it's a great headphone experience. I hope you could dance to it, but you could
Hmm.
also nap to it.
I
I
love
kind of
that. Yeah, I
like a
like that. Yeah.
kind of want like a sensory overload, like kind of, I know when I'm working on a song and I start feeling sleepy,
Hmm.
I know I'm on the right track.
That's good note. I'll take note of that for
But
sure.
it's
Yeah.
all over the map. It's like there's some very quiet stuff, there's some very heavy, loud stuff. Basically, after 12 years of making music for 0 to 5 year olds as Casper Baby Pants, I
Sure.
rediscovered distortion.
Oh,
And
nice. Yeah, that's always a beautiful thing.
I bought this distortion pebble.
Pebble?
I bought this distortion pebble for one Casper song where I needed fuzz, and
Oh,
all of a
wow.
sudden, wait a minute, I forgot about distortion.
It's
So
those one pedals. Yeah.
this
You
pedal
can write.
started me on a
That's
whole new
awesome.
thing. But I've got
Very cool.
85 songs waiting in the wings. I put out a record every uh, January and July, and I'll be
Hmm.
doing that for the years to come.
That's
So
beautiful. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
and
awesome.
it's really not trying to take over the world or be huge. I just
You just
want
want to
to
do
do
it.
it
Yep.
because it's my craft, and I'm really enjoying just plying my craft.
I understand that completely. Well, thank you
That's the
very
whole
much.
pitch. That's the
Yeah,
elevator pitch. If
that's a
the build,
perfect pitch.
if the building was 250 floors.
No, I mean, yeah, that's awesome. I really respect you immensely, and even more so after this conversation, very reassuring, and your methodical ways of being able to just communicate what you're wanting to do sonically. Just, it's good to know those things. But yeah, I just want to thank you so much. I guess the last thing is, do you have any advice for anyone such as myself going into all this, other than just keep creating?
Yeah, it would be just have fun and do it for yourself. Do what
Yes,
makes you feel good. And
right.
always be checking in, like if you're, say, in a collaborative relationship
Hmm.
musically, or even in a romantic relationship, check in with your body. How do you feel? Does it make
Yeah.
you feel open? Does it make you feel clenched? Is it a yes or a no? And try to just, be honest with your intuition,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you're creating. Like, just really follow it, and don't be afraid to do something that's not you, maybe, or
Mm-hmm.
doesn't
Yeah.
seem to be. Because I found that I've had these big arcs, like the President's arc, the Casper Baby Pants arc,
Mm-hmm.
the now solo arc, and they all exist. Like, the materials for all of them constantly were coming out, and so now I'm mining all these old ideas that turn
Right.
out to be solo songs. But at the time, I was like, I don't know what this is for.
Yeah.
I just
Totally.
did it anyway because it felt like a yes,
Mm-hmm.
So follow those feelings. And here's the headline, and this is
Mm-hmm.
going to be my motivational speech once I get it together, is follow those yeses, and eventually you will reach your, wait for it, destination.
Yes to nation. I love that. I like that a lot. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I think we could talk for hours and hours, but I'm so glad you gave me this opportunity to just speak to you and just pick your brain a little bit.
All right, great. Well, yeah, it's been fun bopping around, going down memory lane. So thanks for having me.
Of
And
course. Thank you for chatting.
yeah, and hopefully there'll be more people playing two strings in the future. I'm actually working. I've been pitching a guitar company to make a one string for babies
I
with
I
a
think that's brilliant. Yeah.
built-in amplifier, so they can turn it up and get distortion. And
I've been thinking about something like that too. Maybe we should. I have
yeah,
a luthier friend that I work with to help me build these. Maybe we could talk. Seriously.
my
I mean,
son,
I'm
my
all about
son
that.
is my son is actually a luthier too, and I'm
Oh,
trying to.
awesome.
I've been kind of dropping hints, like,
Hmm.
if you run out of ideas or you want to do a project with
Yeah,
your old.
I got a one string here. This is another Premier replica I did, but it's just a one string.
Wow, those are
It's fretless. Yeah, and it's tape wound string and it's awesome. I love it so
wow,
much.
wow.
Yeah.
Those are amazing replicas. Those are really cool.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
got a good amount of them, and there's this one over here. This is the Mark replica. This is exactly
Wow.
as close as I could get to his rig that he built with the same kind of tuners and etc. I've been pretty
Wow.
obsessive about making them because I'm left-handed too, so it's kind of hard to
Yeah, I was
find,
gonna say they
you
look
know.
left-handed.
Yep,
Yeah.
they're all left-handed, yeah. But yeah, I definitely would love to hear more about that for sure too. So,
Yeah. So you know, the nice thing about a one string for babies is it's never out of tune.
exactly. It really isn't.
The
Yeah.
parents
It's
wouldn't
it's
have to
attuned to
suffer.
itself. Yeah.
And you'd make the string thick enough so it wouldn't be like a plink. It'd be like a
Right. Hmm.
satisfying thing, even on a
Yeah,
small.
I mean, and plus self-amplified too would be really cool. I just really want to build one
Yeah.
like that too. So if you do,
Yeah.
just let me know. I'll probably get one.
Okay.
I'd
Sounds
love to
good.
get one, definitely. All right, well,
Well,
I'll let you go, Chris, but thank you so much for everything. And did you have anything else you wanted to mention?
I just wanted to thank you, Cipriano. Thanks for all your interest and for spreading the word about, all this stuff, and keeping Mark's legacy rolling.
Of
He's
course. Well, yeah, you and Mark's legacy for sure. And I'm really just glad you're still out there making things, still playing the two string, and
yeah.
yeah, it's
I'm gonna go do it
refreshing.
right now.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go too. I just wrote a new tune this morning, so I'm gonna work on that. So, all right,
Sounds good, Cipriano. Thanks again.
take
Take
care.
care and good luck with everything.
Thank you so much.